Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited you're here. And if you're new, welcome. I would love to just give you a lot of value in every one of these episodes. So today's topic is when kids are unexpectedly mean to your daughter. This comes from my own growing up and even into adulthood, and then also some things that have happened recently with some girls. So I remember when I was growing up and I had a lot of chaos in my mind when I was at school because I had this underlying fear that I wasn't accepted for being myself. And so I felt very like I had to put on this, not be fake, but I just had to kind of guard myself because when I was myself, it didn't go well all the time. So I never knew like who was truly going to accept me besides in that, small group of close friends. So one time I was in a group doing a project and we had a few minutes at the end. We were all finished with our work. And I let my guard down and I felt like I was safe with this person. And it happened to be a boy. And there was a girl in the group too. And it turned out that the boy just randomly said, "You're weird." And it really rocked me because I felt like I was just being myself. And I thought we were friends or friendly. He wasn't like a mean boy or anything. And just all of a sudden out of the blue, he just said I was weird. And that was like one of my deepest insecurities, is that I wouldn't be accepted if I was truly myself. So it gave me this evidence that I wasn't enough and that when I was myself, people didn't really like me. They thought I was weird. They thought I was too different. And I didn't really feel like what I was doing was all that weird. I was just talking and being myself. And then another time when I was just waiting in line to go to lunch, and this was in elementary school, this girl asked me, like, "Why are your eyes like that? Like, one of them is higher than the other. Like, why are your eyes shaped like that?" And I didn't expect it. Again, my guard was down. I was standing with my lunchbox. Like, I wasn't even expecting any kind of a mean comment. And I think the issue with that is that kids can touch on super deep insecurities. And in the moment, especially when you're already struggling with, feeling like that you belong, feeling like that you're accepted, it can really make this deep wound. And it can become evidence that this belief that you have about yourself that I can't be myself or I'm not accepted, it like gathers the evidence to prove that to yourself, which it is untrue. This just happened to be people who made rude comments. So that is from my own childhood. And I hear this a lot with girls, So I had a girl this week she's in middle school and they had to get up in front of the class, as you do, which is like terrifying when you're in middle school and any age, but especially middle school. And she had to give this book report basically. And her book wasn't like everybody else's books. So I don't know what the genre was or anything, but a couple of the boys in class laughed when she said what book she was reading and like put off the impression that it was like too easy or babyish or something like that. And they just continued to laugh during her presentation. And this girl in particular really has a limiting belief that because of things that have happened to her, it's not like she just made it up out of the blue, and just like me, that people don't accept her or they don't believe that she is the same level as them. And so what ended up happening was it started this laughing throughout the whole class. You know how one person laughs and then everybody laughs. So I don't know the full picture of, every detail of like how it all unfolded, but I do know that this can typically happen. And what this causes is a problem that girls think that they shouldn't raise their hand in class because if they're wrong, they might get laughed at. Or they shouldn't maybe say something that may not be the same opinion as everyone else because they'll get rejected. So these are really common things. And then another girl, and this girl felt safe enough in our small group to share this experience about being laughed at in class. Another girl was like, yeah, I've had that happen too. Only I was giving a presentation and the name of this constellation that I was saying when I was speaking about, in science, made the class laugh. And she was like, at first I kind of laughed it off. And I was like, yeah, it is kind of a funny name. But then as her presentation went on, every time she said this name of the constellation, the class would like erupt in laughter. And her teacher was getting frustrated and trying to step in and trying to stop it. But then it threw off her confidence in doing the presentation. So sometimes it can be a funny word or someone makes a face or something like that that may trigger laughter, or just plain unkind behavior that can throw your daughter off. And I think even when you're confident, when someone makes like an offhanded remark, it can throw you off completely. And I don't think that all people are mean and, that all kids are mean and things like that, but it can start to, when your daughter has these experiences consistently, and I don't mean every day, but when these things tend to happen, it can feed into limiting beliefs that she has about herself. And really the truth is that those are not true. It just happens to be that she's been in some challenging situations. And so really the common perspective that the girls tell me that this gives them, and what I know from all of my experience in teaching and working with girls for 25 years is, in my own experience, is that it has this spotlight effect. So when the girl made the comment about my eyes being two different shapes or not evenly spaced or whatever it was, it made me then feel like everyone noticed that about me. And it made me feel like, I was self-conscious then. I mean, I'm not going to have eye surgery to fix my eyes and whatever. Like, I think it doesn't even matter. Like, looking back, it's like, what a horrible thing to say to someone. But sometimes people don't have a filter. And I think we can't really wrap our daughters in a bubble and just never expose them to anyone except kind people. I mean, wouldn't that be lovely? Just to only be around kind people. But unfortunately, there are people that make mean comments or they say things that can be taken very personally. And the girls tend to think then that everyone sees that or thinks that, which is untrue. And especially like in a classroom setting, like it's already high risk to raise your hand in class. And I hear this from elementary school girls, middle school, high school, like every age. There is this misconception that, in this common perspective, that if they raise their hand and they're wrong, they're going to be ridiculed, seen as stupid, seen as not enough, like across the board. Even in a small group discussion, like they're very guarded about what they say. And I don't mean every single girl, but the majority of girls, I've noticed this, and they tell me, like directly tell me, I only raise my hand when I know the answer, because there is this spotlight effect that everyone's looking at them, everyone's judging them, and that may or may not be true. It just feels like that. And no one was looking at my eyes, like besides that one girl. And let's be honest, like she wasn't one of my friends, and I never pursued a friendship with her because I'm like, yeah, she's not my cup of tea. But it still made me self-conscious because I was already self-conscious about the way I looked. That puberty age, you're already kind of figuring out your body and you're changing in weird ways and it feels uncomfortable. And no one had ever made a comment about my eyes before. And so it made me feel like everyone noticed that about me. And then another common perspective is that no one cares. So in the example of the girl that gave either girl that gave the presentation, it's like when that happens, when laughter erupts in a classroom, it's like, does anyone care? No one checked on me. No one asked if I was okay afterwards. Or maybe your daughter laughs it off and it's not like they pretend like it didn't bother them, but it really did. You know, especially like the girl that felt like she really liked this book she wanted to talk about, and she was ridiculed for liking this book. And that happens, you know, and it's like standing in your truth and just being like, no, I like this book. You can think it's babyish, but, and that sounds very easy to say, just like tell the girl in your life or your daughter, oh, just say, well, I like it, and you don't have to like it. Yes, that's ideal. I mean, if your daughter is able to do that, amazing. And I think when she's prepared, it's a little bit easier. When you can expect something like that, it's a little bit easier to know what to say. The challenge is when it's totally unexpected and it just comes out of the blue from either a friend or someone that you don't expect to say something that is mean or unkind, and that really can throw you off. And you know, it's like when they start thinking no one cares, or does everyone hate me? Like they all think I'm dumb, or they all hate me, or they all think it's a babyish book or whatever. When the truth probably is there are people sitting in that crowd that are like, thank God that I like those kind of books too. But there's this fear of voicing that, especially in middle school, but even in elementary school, you know, at the older ages, it's like, can I be brave enough to say I like that too, and not feel like everyone is looking at me, everyone thinks I'm weird and all those things, because acceptance is such a huge thing as they are in those tween going into teen years. And, you know, can also bring up this belief that everyone thinks I'm fill in the blank. Everyone thinks I'm a baby. Everyone thinks I'm not good at math. Everyone thinks I'm looking weird today because my shoes don't match my whatever. It's like this common thing that comes up, and it starts to create these limiting beliefs, these beliefs that hold your daughter back from being free to be herself, from knowing that it's okay if these things happen, meaning it's not okay, but it doesn't mean it's true. So it's never okay to be unkind to someone. I mean, I think if we could all have a magic wand and make the whole world nice, it would be much easier to live. And unfortunately, that isn't the case. And especially in middle school, elementary school, high school, any age, it's all about figuring out how to handle challenges and with other people. And, you know, not just giving up and being like, well, I'm not going to be around people anymore then, or I'm just never going to talk to anyone. So the parents that I talk to about this, and I think my mom too, it feels very frustrating because, you know, as a parent, you kind of feel helpless. And when I would go home and we would sit on the stairs, with these stairs in our house that were right by our entryway, and my mom and I would often sit there, and my dog Digger, I had like a long-haired dachshund, she would always like be part of the conversation. I would like pet her and tell my mom what I was feeling. You know, I don't think my mom really knew what to say besides, oh, ignore them, or, you know, they're not right. And she was saying all the right things. Like, of course it's true. And you know, when it's your daughter, when it's a girl that you care about so much, it like breaks your heart that these things happen. And you really just want to tear through the school and like find these kids and, you know, confront them and be like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you so insecure that you're making my daughter feel like garbage? Or why did you make that comment about her eyes? Like, she already is feeling so self-conscious about her body, and like, why would you ever say that? You know, like the mama bear or the papa bear or whatever your role is, like you want to go and like tear through everybody and like ask them like why. And it's hard because we don't know why. We don't know if those people are hurting. And I never, you know, they say hurt people, and it never makes it okay. I mean, I don't think there's ever an excuse to be totally mean and cruel to people. And I think people are just insecure, and sometimes they just say things that are just very off the cuff. They're like, well, that's how I think about it, and I don't care what people think. And it's like, you know, those aren't my people. So you don't want to go to the school and like try and investigate who the kid was, because they're not going to tell you anyway. And And then you don't know like the teacher situation, like in those cases where it happened at school, did the teacher try and stop it? And with being a teacher, sometimes when those things do happen, it can get out of hand quickly and you have to take control of the situation. I always had the agreement with my class that, and I always talked about this, that it takes a lot of courage to get in front of people or to be in a group. And I would always model like how you should talk to people and how you should treat them when they're presenting. And, unless you have that intention every time and you shut it down, you have a classroom agreement and you consistently follow through on that with how you want to feel in your classroom and how you should be treating each other. If you don't have that, then everything can go off the rails really quickly. And not every teacher does, unfortunately. And I am pro teacher. I was a teacher for years, and there's so many good teachers, amazing teachers who really try to cultivate this amazing environment. And sometimes even when you do, kids can still say mean things, and it makes it really hard. I don't think it's bad for you to reach out to the teacher and just let them know that this really hurt your daughter or this is really humiliating and this happened. I mean, I think anytime someone told me that, I took it very seriously, and 9 times out of 10, I already knew it had happened and I was working on a resolution. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, letting them know, but I think it's different, trying to solve it for your daughter, because you can support her in that and help, by maybe if this is happening consistently, like letting the school know. But I also think there's a danger in, for me anyway, like me expecting my mom to solve it for me or to call and like fix it for me instead of me taking action too. So I think for me, I never knew how. And sometimes my mom would call, but I think we tried to solve it on our own as much as we could. And I think that really empowers your daughter when you give her tools to do that. So you might be thinking like, okay, what do I do, when this happens? So it's not like every day when your daughter leaves your car, leaves for the bus or whatever, walks or whatever, you're not going to say like, if anyone's mean to you today, make sure you blah, blah, blah. I think it's having those regular check-ins where you're seeing how she's feeling about things, and it's building that in with, yes, you should have some things in place just in case. And this is, again, not having the intention that you're going to go to school and people are going to be mean to you, because you don't want your daughter to like walk around with a dark cloud over like victim mentality, like everyone's mean to me. No, I have to expect it, because I believe in starting your day in a positive way, expecting the best, looking for a yay in your day. And even the girl that had the thing with talking about her book, she was able, even then when I asked her in our small group, like, was there anything good about your day? And she was like, well, I did do this technology project and people told me it was good, and I got that out of the way early in the day, and I felt really good about that, which is why it threw her off that this thing happened, because it was after something good had happened. So I think, again, it's just having those regular check-ins with your daughter about, like, when hard things happen. I mean, that's when you talk about it. It's like, okay, let her vent, and this could be in a different, in all kinds of ways. So she can just talk to you about it. Sometimes it's really painful to talk about. So if you listen to our previous episode where I was talking about different ways to see if your daughter's open to talking, if it's too hard to say out loud, ask her if she wants to write about it, or ask her if she wants to create art about it. Knowing your daughter, ask her what way she'd like to communicate with you. And she might need some space to process it on her own. So that's the first thing. Like, are you open to talking about this? And even writing it out. Like, I have the girls do this all the time. Get it out like a brain dump. Anything negative, you're not going to read it, and then rip it up. Now, that doesn't mean I had the girl do that this week or this group, and it didn't eliminate her from thinking about it, because it was like she was replaying it in her mind. But at least it got those thoughts out, and she had also talked with her mom. So in supporting her in different ways and being able to voice it in the group, she was having multiple ways of venting that. And, I think it's also like in that case, and in my case, I had a friend standing near me. And this girl had a friend in class, like a real friend. And in both cases, my friend didn't check on me and see if like I was okay. Like, that was a really mean comment. Like, are you okay? That didn't happen. And same thing with the girl when she was giving her presentation, everyone was laughing in the class. Her friend didn't lean over and be like, I'm so sorry that happened. Are you okay? And so what I should have done in that case, and what you can encourage your daughter to do, is to advocate for that, to be assertive. And it doesn't have to be like, I can't believe you didn't stand up for me, and I can't believe you didn't say anything in like an accusing way, but it can be more like, hey, I really would have appreciated it. Like, that was really hard what happened today. If you would have just checked in with me and like just asked if I was okay, I really would have appreciated that. Like, I felt really alone, and it felt like either you didn't hear it or you didn't think it was a big deal. And I just want to let you know that it was a really hard class for me, or it was a really hard time for me standing in lunch, in the lunch line or whatever. And I really could have used you as a friend in that moment. So that's one thing. And that's very hard for girls, because there's this fear that if you tell your friend that, they're going to get mad at you, or they're going to think you're, whatever. And it's just encouraging your daughter to be like, no, if they're true friends, they will be able to hear that and not think that they're a bad friend, but know what to do next time. So that's one thing after they vent. The second thing you can do is teach your daughter to use it to be better herself. So it doesn't mean, again, that she always has to be the person to only do this and she can never receive. That's where that assertive piece and telling your friends what you need is so important. It's, use it as an experience for when that happens to another girl. So let's say that there's a group project and someone makes a mean comment. If you feel strong enough to say something to that person, like, hey, that wasn't cool when you said that about her eyes. Like, that was kind of weird you said that. Or however you would say it. I mean, maybe that's not the best, use the words to like say weird, since she said my eyes were weird, or whatever the case would be. But like, use it to build her empathy and say, you know what, honey, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I've had things like that happen to me too. And not like, oh, the world's a bad place, there are bad people in the world, but more like, let's use this for good. So here's what I do to make sure I check in with people when I notice that. When a presentation goes poorly at work, I might say, hey, are you okay? I know that was rough. And then it allows that person to feel seen, and it allows that person to feel like understood and like they're not alone. And so encouraging her to have empathy with other people when those things happen, and she be the person to reach out. And then that can be reciprocated, And I think that really teaches a lot about humility and about compassion and empathy. And we need more of that in the world. And it doesn't mean your daughter's a doormat or that she only gives and never receives. It just is like, no, like, let's be those people. Let's be those people, but let's also stand up for what we need too. So it doesn't mean you have to just ignore your own needs and ignore your own feelings. Let's make it to where this could be empowering for you as a friend. So that's number 2. The third thing is encouraging your daughter to have regular check-ins with her friends. So this doesn't mean like, are we good? Are we still friends? Like things like that. It's more like just noticing and just seeing how things are going. So whether it's like a hangout session where they're hanging out together, just maybe say, it's okay for you to ask like how your friend is feeling about school, or about, friends, or about how she, did on her math test or whatever. So it's like encouraging them to have open conversations about a variety of topics. And you can brainstorm with your daughter, like, what do you like to talk to your friends about that feels deeper than just surface level stuff? Because, we all have those friends, like we have the surface level friends where we just talk about like very easy, very just regular things. And then you also have but you also need in a friendship to be able to go deeper when you need it. So it's like having the courage, encouraging her to have the courage to be vulnerable with her friend, and like bringing something like this up, like, hey, when we were standing in lunch, this thing happened to me and it was hard, and while they're drawing or something. And 9 times out of 10, when you do that, when you teach your daughter to do that, it's reciprocated in her friendship. And if it's not, then it's, is that a friend that you feel safe sharing with? Or do you have a different friend for that? Or, how can you ask for what you need? So it's like teaching her to communicate with her friends instead of avoiding hard conversations. And then this is something that I just did with the girls and Girls Positivity Club yesterday, and I got really good feedback about it. They really loved it. And it's called a bounce back box. So we took an egg carton, literally. It can be a shoe box, it can be a Kleenex box, anything. And we just made like a cover for it out of construction paper. And it was really all about like not being a perfectionist, knowing it's okay if you make mistakes. Everybody has hard times. And what I teach the girls a lot is to be your own encourager, to be your own cheerleader. And yes, you want that from other people too, but that's something I was missing growing up, is I depended on everyone else to help me feel better. And I didn't really have that way, like the strategies or the things I could do to do that for myself. So you basically take the egg carton or whatever box you want to use. You let them decorate it. I called mine, my bounce back box. And then just writing an encouraging thing on it, like it's okay not to be perfect. Everyone has hard days. Keep going. What if it all works out? Like any of those good beliefs or encouraging statements, affirmations, mantras, whatever you want to call it. And then when they flip the lid up, they can put in little like slips of paper. We just use index cards in this case, and wrote down encouraging phrases to ourselves that we may say to a friend if they're having a hard time or they need encouragement to keep going. And then it could also be like, what are times when I bounce back? Like, when this thing happened, what did I do to overcome it? And like writing examples of that, so that that day, whenever your daughter needs a pick-me-up, she can go to that box, take one out and read it, or however many she wants. And then that can kind of fuel her own fire to be like, okay, I can do this. This was hard. I'm going to feel it. Like, I never encourage the girls to ignore feelings. Feel what you need to feel. Process it in a healthy way, and this is something that you can do to pump yourself back up after you're working through everything. And even when you're helping your daughter process through these hard things, this is really good to have a tool that she can get anytime she wants. It increases independence. It allows her to know that I also have to be my own encourager and tell myself positive things so that I keep going, and that it's really an empowering thing to do. So I got really good feedback from the girls. They told me it was one of the favorite things that we've done. And so, so I thought I'd pass that along. And the last thing is, if your daughter is stuck and she's like, no one cares, everyone hates me, I'm always made fun of, when it's like a limiting belief, you can do this technique that I've learned from Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. So they're really big in the personal development space. And, anything that I learn for growing myself, I always think, like, how could I teach this to girls? So the three-legged stool is basically like this. Think of it as like the top of a stool. So that's where the seat is. So that's where the limiting belief is, or the empowering belief, but we're going to use it as a limiting belief, a challenge, something your daughter believes that is kind of negative or, stuck. So it's like, kids are always mean to me, or no one cares. And you say, okay, what are 3 pieces of evidence you have that that's true? So what's one thing that happened? Okay, no one cares. Well, no one checked on me after everybody laughed during my presentation. Okay. When I talked about, this thing with my friends, they ignored me. Okay. And then, a third one might be, people make mean comments about how I look, and no one seems to care. So those would be the 3 legs of the stool, because to have a stool, it has to have 3 legs, right? It has to stand in some way. So then you don't just leave it there. Now you say, how can we break the legs? So meaning if it's like, well, no one checked on me. Okay. Is that always the case? And maybe it is at school, but you can say, do I check in with you? So even if it's an adult, like whatever the case would be, you're looking for evidence that would knock the leg off that stool. So then if you think about a 3-legged stool, you knock one leg off, it's going to be wobbly and it's going to start to fall over. And the idea is to do that with all three pieces of evidence. So then when you are able to come up with things that would discount or make it untrue, like, is it true that no one cares? What about who is it that really does care? And whatever the things would be. Do people always make mean comments about how you look? No. This person said she liked my shoes the other day, or she thought my hair looked cool, or whatever. So it's like, okay, we're going to knock that off. So you do that for as many as, for all 3, but you come up with as many ways that it can like saw the leg off of those pieces of evidence that make that challenge or limiting belief true. And then the idea is that you're knocking the stool down, which means you're eliminating that belief. Like, is it really true that no one cares? No. So then you have the evidence. It's like, well, let's remember these things. In these situations, yes, they were hard. And I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I know how that feels. You've already done all the empathy stuff and all the other things. But now it's like, is this really true? And you're like trying to find ways to show her that actually it's not true. It just felt true in that moment. So it's really powerful. Try out one of those ideas and see which one really hits with your daughter. And it depends. I mean, it might depend on the situation. But I think encouraging her to try all these ways, taking action, because we can all talk about things all day long. But unless we take action and unless we shared ways that she could take action, then it can continue to happen. So my hope is that in me sharing these ideas and in all the experience I have in working with girls and really listening to them and really understanding, and same thing with the parents. Like, I talk a lot with parents about these things. And my hope is that I can share one thing, one takeaway that you can actually implement and use in your everyday life with your daughter and with the girl in your life. So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if there are other challenges or limiting beliefs or things that your daughter or the girl in your life is facing. I would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me at Girls Positivity Club across all social platforms and in my email. I always want to hear from you because it's how I can serve you best. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your week and keep having those tough conversations that are going to empower your daughter to feel like she can be herself, that she isn't alone, and that she is worthy and amazing just for being herself. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.